Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. And it's all crazy martinis today. Yeah, buckle up. It's going to be a fun ride here. And we've got some lefties doing crazy things in all three of these things. So Republicans certainly have their share of insanity, but I guess they get the day off today. So let's start with Laurence Tribe, longtime Harvard law professor, longtime go-to legal guy for left-wing legal opinions on major Supreme Court cases. I first became familiar with him when he was screaming at the top of his lungs on behalf of Al Gore during the 2000 recount against George W. Bush, and he's only gotten more lefty over the intervening 24 years here, Jim. Laurence Tribe has decided that because Donald Trump was guilty on all 34 counts in his trial in New York City recently, and that because those felonies were related to activities in the weeks leading up to the 2016 presidential election, that he really didn't deserve to win. And so he's basically lamenting that Hillary should have won. Here's what he says. In 2016, this is on Twitter, Donald Trump seemed to pull an inside straight by narrowly winning Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin while losing the popular vote by 3 million. It's irrelevant. So that's a total red herring right there. We now know Trump committed 34 felonies to win that election. Without these crimes, he seems almost certain to have lost to Hillary Clinton. She would have been sworn in on January 20th, 2017. She would have filled 2 Supreme Court vacancies. It's actually 3, and enacted her legislative agenda, unquote. So, Jim, I'm not sure. We'd already had the Access Hollywood tape, so if that didn't do in Donald Trump, I'm not sure this little revelation about the payoff to Stormy Daniels would have changed a ton of minds. I mean, the Hillary Clinton campaign, so overconfident. We know about the fact never going to Wisconsin. They were pouring champagne in the days leading up to the election on the campaign plane. They thought they had this in the bag well before election night, and then they got the shock and the horror of their lives on election night 2016. They still can't handle that. Yes, she conceded the next day, but ever since then, she's blamed Jim Comey, the Russians, women for simply doing whatever their husbands told them to do, any litany of excuses other than some actual introspection and maybe giving her opponent some credit. So what do you make of Laurence Tribe? Basically, I don't know, Jim, possibly undermining democracy here by suggesting that if not for Trump's legal setbacks here, that Hillary Clinton would have been president in 2017.
So there's 2 angles I want to take on this, Greg. The first is you look at what Donald Trump and his interactions with Stormy Daniels. There's a lot to criticize. This is not sterling moral character here. It's sordid, it's sleazy. You and I believe that, having said, with all that said, the argument that he had committed some felony by attempting to file these as legal payments to Cohen instead of as transferring them to pay off Stormy Daniels was, far from clear. But the argument, I almost want to credit Laurence Tribe for making the least plausible argument out of all the arguments available to the Trump critics, which is that, well, if we had known about the Stormy Daniels payments, Hillary would have won. No, we can't go into that alternate world in which this came out, but it seems entirely reasonable to believe that if we found out, oh yeah, Trump paid off a porn star, it would not have had any bigger effect than the Access Hollywood one. If you grew up in the New York City area in the late 80s, early 90s, the name Marla Maples probably rings a bell. Messy divorce with Ivana, messy divorce from Marla Maples, and that Trump, there was on the cover of Playboy magazine. This guy was a notorious womanizer and all kinds. So the idea that if we'd known he was falsifying business records, well, then I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Show me one voter in this world who it's like, yeah, that was my criteria. That was the one. It's because I thought he was such an honest person and that he would never lie about paying off porn star mistresses. That's, that just utterly ridiculous. What I think is jumps out when you mentioned this and you pitched this as an idea for today's podcast. Laurence Tribe goes on a long list of people who there was once a time where maybe you didn't agree with them, but they were somebody you felt like you had to listen to because of their stature, because of their intellect, because of what they knew in this world. And There are a whole bunch of people you could put in this category over the last decade or so. Larry Sabato, University of Virginia professor. Back when in my wire service days, I quoted Larry Sabato, not in every article I wrote, but a whole bunch of them, because he was the world's most phenomenal source about calling you back. And, you tell him what you're writing about, and Larry Sabato could generate exactly the quote you needed to tie the piece together. Maybe it's because apparently everywhere he goes in public, people mistake him for the My Pillow guy, which would drive anybody crazy. And if you are also, I firmly believe that the Charlottesville Unite the Right hate rally and riot and everything that came out of that was all, and Jews will not replace us, the Tiki Torch guys, that was all the University of Virginia campus. And Larry Sabato teaches there. I don't doubt going through something like that might radicalize you. But Larry Sabato, you listen to him now, and he is just, much further out there than he used to be, and not someone whose words, I think, carry as much weight as they used to when he was trusted, or at least somebody you thought was listened to on both sides. You can point to figures like this on the right. Rudy Giuliani is, remember this man was Times Magazine's Man of the Year 2001? Yeah, they're going to rescind that, I suspect. Tucker Carlson going on at length about how what we think are UFOs are actually, in fact, demonic spiritual invasions from another dimension. He didn't mention this a lot on Tucker Carlson nightly on Fox News. Only now on Twitter can it be told. So this happens to a bunch of people. Often it goes with age. They tend to go a little wacky out there. Probably one of the reasons you probably shouldn't have people in their late 70s and early 80s running for president. But anyway, just kind of observing that a lot of people in public life who used to, even if you disagreed with them, they carried some intellectual weight to them. They carried some credibility with them, and they've just set that on fire for what in most pretty much aligning completely with the Trump era.
No, I remember this going on during the Obama years, too. There were some folks on the right saying, well, we're going to find out that he really wasn't born in America, and then everything that he did as president is going to be undone because he was not constitutionally eligible to be president.
Yeah,
so I don't think that's going to happen. And so Laurence Tribe just wishing here that things had turned out differently. They didn't. You're not going to erase 2017 to 2021. Donald Trump was president of the United States for those 4 years, and he might be again. They're already lighting their hair on fire about the prospect. And was it Chris Matthews the other day? They dragged him out of mothballs to bring him on MSNBC and says, oh, it's just indisputable at this point. It'll be 4 years of a dictatorship from day one.
I mean, Greg, as bad as that sounds, it's only 4 years of a dictatorship. As we all know, dictatorships believe in term limits. Saddam, the Ayatollah, all these guys are, every Soviet leader, they were known for their commitment to, I will rule you with an iron fist, but only for 4 years.
So Bobby De Niro with his, if he gets elected, he's never leaving.
It's the last election you're ever going to have. Yes, it's the most important election in our history, and apparently the last election in our history. So make the most of it, people, with the great options we have.
No, I mean, you're right. Basically, every Donald Trump marriage ended with an affair with the next one that he married, or perhaps others in there. And so that should be condemned morally from stem to stern all the way in between. You notice you don't see a lot of Melania reaction to what happened in New York City and so forth. People trying to extrapolate that not only legally, but politically now to, I mean, what's even the point? Is there actually going to be an effort to try and undo things that Trump did that are legally binding? Is it an effort to shock the conscience of people for this year's election? I don't even know what the point of it is. But like you said, coming a bit unhinged there, Larry. But not the first time in the last couple decades that he's done that. All right, in the midst of all the craziness we're going to be talking about today, there's also fantastic news, and that's Omaha Steaks and the great deal they can give you for Father's Day, because I promise you, your dad wants a world-class steak. Last night, we had the sirloins. My older daughter said it's the best steak she's ever had, and we just love having it for all sorts of other reasons, not only the main dish, but also the sides. And Jim, I know you've enjoyed it as well.
Yesterday, I believe it was you mentioned that the Columbus daughters, usually very picky about French fries and potato products, devoured the steak fries. And they really are steak fries. And I say that because each one of these probably could feed one cow. That's why they call them steak fries. And so they came in the package that Omaha Steaks had sent. I'm trying to avoid carbs. I'm trying to avoid starches. So yesterday, I go to work out to try to be a healthy person. And I come back and I find that Mrs. Garrity and my two teenagers have made the steak fries, but there are no steak fries left, that they have been devoured like locusts, have just clawed into it. There's like tiny little potato pieces and crumbs at the bottom of it because they disappeared because they were just that darn good. An indicator that, how good are the steak fries? I couldn't get any. That's how good they are when they were prepared when I was not in the house. I can't think of a stronger recommendation.
Show Dad the love with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com to order the deluxe Father's Day gift package with 20 unforgettable entrees plus 4 free burgers for just $89.99 when you use the promo code Martini. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Martini. All right, Jim, on to Crazy Martini number 2. And we've already talked about Hillary, so why don't we just camp out with Hillary Clinton here for a little bit in the second martini. As I think just about every listener knows, it's been 80 years exactly today since the Allied invasion at Normandy, colloquially known as D-Day, the breaching of Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Just 11 months later, the Germans surrendered on the European front. A phenomenal day, a costly day in American history. 2,500 Americans killed on D-Day. There's more than 9,000 buried in that unforgettable cemetery just above the bluff at Omaha Beach. I had the chance to go there right after I graduated from college on a summer trip with the professor that really made me fall in love with history in the 20th century. And if you ever have the chance to go to the Colville-sur-Mer cemetery above Omaha Beach, I implore you to do it. It will be one of the most meaningful days of your life. It still is, many, many years later. But today, of course, the dignitaries gathered. Thankfully, there were dozens of World War II vets still able to go. And, 80 years ago, these guys are either pushing 100 or in some cases well past it. Biden spoke. Macron spoke. Hillary Clinton tweeting out today, 80 years ago, thousands of brave Americans fought to protect democracy on the shores of Normandy. This November, all we have to do is vote. So obviously, she's making a clear comparison between Nazi Germany and the Republican Party with Donald Trump as the Republican nominee. So, Jim, they're trying to inject this terminology into literally everything until the word just becomes whatever they want it to mean that day. And it's just getting nauseating. And it's insulting to the heroes of that day 80 years ago.
Yeah, it's almost in the neighborhood of stolen valor. It's not saying, what we've done is the same as defeating Adolf Hitler, but it is kind of saying like, by voting, I'm just like those guys who stormed Omaha Beach. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're it's a free country. Vote for whoever you want. But I think what we see in this statement, a whole bunch of Democrats have conflated capital D Democrats with small d Democrats, and their interpretation of democracy is, well, the country is free and democracy works when my side wins. And if the other side wins, it is a sign that democracy does not work. Two kind of related thoughts to this. I saw somebody make this argument today, and I'm really surprised. This is the first time I felt like I've heard a new argument about the meaning of Trump's election back in 2016 in a long, long time. And it was making the argument that, look, if you've ever believed that America is run by a secret cabal, that the voters don't really get a say, that this is all rigged, it's all organized, it's the Trilateral Commission, the Illuminati, the Hellfire Club, whichever sinister group you think is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Do you think they decided, let's have Trump win this one? Does he seem like, and so this person argues like, this is the ultimate, Trump's election, love him or hate him, was the ultimate demonstration of American democracy, that there are no guardrails of what the American people can pick. They are allowed to pick the guy who was doing an NBC reality show, if you will, and who's, says grab them by the you-know-what, and who has all this baggage and all these other and they picked him anyway. And the fact that he actually, got elected, took office, and ran the country for 4 years really is a demonstration that, yeah, the American people choose. You don't have to like the choices they make, but they really do. There is no secret group that is actually, selecting it for you, that you really do get this. And, here we are. Trump is, now convicted. He's got all kinds of baggage. He's had all kinds of issues. January 6th, he's got, all these other indictments. And most of the polling still has him pretty much neck and neck with Biden. Is that not a sign that the American people do get to choose, and the American people do get to, there are no well, the Trilateral Commission won't let somebody else be the one who's elected. If Trump wins, and I don't know, I think it's probably roughly 50-50. Trump took a shot from the conviction. It's not good news when you get convicted of a criminal offense, but I don't think it's going to be front and center in people's minds come November. But if Trump gets elected, a lot of capital D Democrats are going to have a really difficult challenge of how much they believe in small d democracy. Because their idea is democracy, the people choose. Well, what happens when the people choose something that you think is so morally reprehensible, so beyond the pale that you just can't accept it? You just, that's not, the Democrats have effectively decided this is not a legitimate choice. Now, I would have liked anybody else in the primary other than maybe Ramaswamy. I'm not thrilled about this either, but the Republican Party chose it. And right now it's roughly a coin flip for what the American people are going to decide. And it's all going to come down to what you the listener, decide to do in November, because I can't remember the exact date. That's where we, so in a way, but the idea is that, like Hillary Clinton is putting out the argument, no, this is like Nazi Germany. This is the end of democracy. This is the end, kind of like what we talked to with Chris Matthews in these statements in the previous Martini. That's, so what do you do if that happens? Do you then become anti-American? Do you then become anti-free elections? Some might argue that Democrats, if not Democrats, I shouldn't say Democrats. Some might argue that a good portion of elitist progressives already do, and that's why they prefer decisions to be made outside of your hands and not to have checks and balances and the Supreme Court saying, no, you can't do this and stuff like that. So I think, what we are seeing here is that Democrats like Hillary Clinton are comfortable with the people selecting their leaders as long as they make the right choice, which happens to be Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, she is on year 8 of her victimhood tour out of this, and I don't think that's particularly healthy for her. But yeah, you make a good point. I mean, next week will mark the 100th birthday of George H.W. Bush, who happens to be the last Republican presidential candidate the Democrats admit won. Because in 2000, we had Bush versus Gore, and they to this day, most of them still think that somehow Al Gore was robbed, even though the Miami Herald and others went through the votes and realized that Bush won. Then you had the whole Diebold thing from Ohio in 2004, and you had Barbara Boxer and a bunch of House Democrats trying to challenge those results on January 6th. So that's clearly an assault on our democracy by present standards. And then, of course, a bunch of them refused to acknowledge Trump in 2016. So, it's obviously a lot of bad things happened in the wake of 2020. January 6th was an awful day. But the idea that election denialism started that day is quite the stretch. All right, Jim, on to our final Crazy Martini now, involving the Democrats. And for that, we go to a federal courthouse in Manhattan. And that's where New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez is currently on trial on bribery and corruption charges for, basically doing the bidding of the Egyptians and the Qataris. And while many people may not have noticed this, we now have 5 independents in the U.S. Senate. All of them caucus with the Democrats, so it's still a Democratic majority. But you got Bernie, Angus King, Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin just switched, and Bob Menendez has 2. And the crazy part is why Bob Menendez is now running for Senate and another term as an independent candidate. The Democrats wanted nothing to do with him at this point. But the reason he's now made the switch, in addition to staying on the ballot, is to allegedly create some leverage for being pardoned. And that's important because he wants to keep his pension and health benefits for the rest of his life if he's convicted, which obviously shows how confident he is that he's going to beat these charges. So the New York Post is reporting that Menendez running for re-election and switching his affiliation from Democrat to independent is basically his insurance policy. If convicted, the senator would likely lose his pension and health benefits. If pardoned, he could keep them. Right now, he gets paid $174,000 a year, just like every other senator, except those in leadership, and would be eligible for a pension of nearly $140,000 a year, plus health care for him and his wife. Now, what happens is if you're a convicted felon, you lose those things unless you're pardoned. And so he thinks that he might be able to leverage this against the Democrats and have Biden promise to pardon him if he'll get out of the race. And also, he's hoping that perhaps due to Trump's recent legal issues, that Trump would pardon him if, in fact, he's convicted, if Trump is winning. So I don't know how this strategy will pay off exactly, Jim. My guess is that in a presidential year, whatever Menendez would draw might not be enough to help the Republican Senate candidate get over the top. So I don't know how much leverage he has, but nonetheless, he's creating a few more headaches for Democrats, which is always fun. But what do you make of Bob Menendez just scheming every which way as long as he's still breathing?
Greg, I just yearn for the better, simpler, more ethical days when we, would think about a presidential pardon, and what came to mind was Mark Rich or something. Back when there were standards for who could get a presidential pardon. So my first thought is, Joe Biden doesn't take questions very often, but I would really like someone to ask him, will you pardon Senator Bob Menendez if he's convicted? And I'd really like the president to say no, preferably hell no, and shove your gold bars someplace. Bob Menendez does not deserve anybody come riding to his rescue, since he really probably should have been convicted the first time around, and there was that one holdout juror and all that stuff. By the way, also, I suppose we just kind of throw out here on the topic of presidential pardons, like my colleague Andy McCarthy points out, that what he sees in the current gun trial for Hunter Biden is basically a delaying tactic and an aim to get after the election, obviously hope that Joe Biden is reelected. But even if Joe Biden isn't reelected, that at some point after Election Day, Joe Biden can pardon his son and all these charges go away. Would there be a political hit from that? Yeah, but what are you going to do? If Joe Biden loses the election, he's already lost the election. It's not like you have to worry about that. And if he's reelected for another 4 years or another, amount of time until Kamala Harris takes over. So there's no harm in that. Right. So you already see people in the parties who have, criminal records and allegations of criminal behavior and indictments and evidence built that looks like a pretty damning case. And the attitude is, it's okay, I got a presidential pardon coming. Now, that's not what this whole system's. The presidency is not supposed to be a way in which you reward all the bad people in your party to help them escape consequences. That's not how this is supposed to work. So I would love to see President Biden say, yeah, I'm never doing this. I don't think you're going to get this. And I'd love to see, just a broader attitude that if you can't do the crime, don't do the time, and don't get elected as senator from New Jersey, because that tends to catch up with almost all of them sooner or later.
It's like being governor of Illinois. The first term is your elected term. The second term is your prison term. And so... Ryan Blagojevich, yeah.
This thing is friggin' golden. Yes.
Gold is always the key. It's always gold bars or the golden opportunity to appoint a guy to the Senate. Yeah.
What are we electing? Pirates?
Oh man, I'm sad that the Menendez trial is not getting enough attention, though. It seems like it's happening in the shadows because then you have Trump and now you got Hunter Biden getting all the legal oxygen. I'm sure Bob Menendez is happy about it. A little fair play here would be nice because gold bars. That's pretty intriguing.
Greg, remember when the Menendez trial meant the, Psycho brothers in sweaters?
Yes, our second Menendez trial reference of the week. Who would have thought? If you had bet on that at the beginning of the week, you made a ton of money.
Hey,
and you probably can bet on that.
You can bet on a lot of things. Yeah. What reference, God, I took the over on the Die Hard references this week, and Jim and Greg didn't do it.
Whoever rolled the dice on those long Menendez brothers odds, they're basking in it. Jim, have a great day. We'll do it again tomorrow. See you then.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us again today. Also, thank you for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific Thursday and join us again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.